Hello, football fans. Welcome back to week 11 of the 2023 season for the Scuffed Football Podcast. This is Noah. I'm Ted. We're out here again doing the damn thing. This one's going to be relatively short, but man, what a shitty week of football. I kind of want to start by yelling at the NFL because what the fuck was this week's slate of games? We had 4 primetime games this week, Noah, 4 of them. And I'm just going to go through them here because somebody needs to get fired for these decisions. Thursday night, we had Panthers-Bears. I was texting Noah during this game. He was streaming and actively not watching, which good choice by him. The first quarter, there were more punt return yards by just the Panthers than there were yards of offense for both teams combined. Awful. Who puts that as a primetime game? Okay, we're moving on because the Thursday night games usually suck. All right, fine, so be it. We get to Sunday morning, standalone game. Yeah, somewhere in Europe, I don't even know this time. The Colts and the Patriots managed to combine for 16 points. What the hell? They was so bad that they replaced their bum-ass quarterback in New England with a different bum-ass quarterback who still can't score more than 6 points. Awful. We get to Sunday night. The Jets and the Raiders. The Jets, I almost understand scheduling this game with Aaron Rodgers, but you had 10 fucking weeks to flex this out of the Sunday night spot. Find me a different team. I don't need Jets Raiders. Nobody needs Jets Raiders. We get to Monday night. This one is the best of a really bad bunch, but still, why does this have to be the primetime Monday game? We get Bills and Broncos. What the fuck is the NFL doing with their schedule, man?
Yeah, I mean, this entire season, we haven't seen like a lot of primetime games. I think the best we got was Chiefs and Dolphins, and even that was pretty boring, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, this entire season, all these important, primetime games have just been not up to standard.
Man,
actually, I suppose the Eagles-Cowboys was probably the best we've gotten so far.
My thing is that, like, even with the Chiefs and Dolphins, right, it ended up being a pretty boring game to watch. But on paper, you could get excited for that game and tell yourself, like, these are 2 good teams. We're gonna watch a fun football game, right? I don't think there is anybody who went into last night or into Sunday night going, man, I'm so excited for the Jets and Raiders. Like, not even Jets fans could get up for that one, dude. Come on.
Yeah,
all of them being this bad is just embarrassing. Anyway, done with my yelling at the NFL rant. I want to start because I already mentioned him. What the hell is going on in Buffalo? I know this seems like a slight to Noah, and I feel like I'm doing this a lot recently. I promise it's not personal, but I have so many questions about Buffalo. So this morning, they as of Tuesday morning, time of recording this, the Bills fired their offensive coordinator. There's a lot of questions for me with that, because I don't know how you blame the offensive coordinator. For me, the Bills up until last week were still a top 3 team in scoring offense, which tells me that the offense isn't necessarily the problem. If you're worried about the turnovers or late game, whatever the case may be, right? If it's clock management like we've seen in the past with Sean McDermott, right? If it's Josh Allen throwing interceptions, right? I could see that either the quarterback's coach or Sean McDermott getting fired this morning, right? Like I wouldn't have expected either one, but I get it. The offensive coordinator getting fired makes no sense in the world to me.
Yeah, again, you had told me, I wasn't even aware until, a few minutes ago, coming home from work. Again, even this past week where we struggled mightily, we had 5 turnovers, like we still put up 22 points. Like I feel like we were in that game. We played, like offensively, we were still able to put up points. So I'm not entirely sure, like granted, yes, I definitely would love those 5 turnovers back, but like, I don't know what that's changing, or who knows? Maybe this coming week we're about to see the Bills fucking explode for 70 points again. Like maybe we'll get that. Who knows? But yeah, I'm kind of confused as a Bills fan myself. So
yeah, And the other thing, I guess, for me is, like, if you're blaming the offensive coordinator for the play calling that's putting Josh Allen in bad situations for interceptions, right? I guess my confusion there is, yes, we've watched Josh Allen be good for the past few years, right? But, like, turnovers were the name of his game in college. He was not a super accurate passer. He was a gunslinger, as we've mentioned in weeks past on this podcast, that, like, sometimes it's just decision making from Josh Allen. And I don't know what the play calling changes if that's how you're blaming the offensive coordinator. Like, it's just a firing that makes no sense for me. especially compounded by the fact that like the Bills are still in playoff position. I don't think that 5-5 is necessarily where they expected to be, but I mean, they're half a game out of a playoff spot at this point in time. Like, I don't understand why you're giving up on that. A game and a half out of the East, half a game out of a wild card spot, like that, it doesn't sit in a really intelligent place for me, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, agreed. I think that 5-5 is definitely not where we want it to be. I don't know. I can't offer any insight on this. Like, as much as I'm the Bills guy, I have no fucking idea. So don't ask me about this.
All right. Well, to talk some more about playoff spots, I think it's important that we go to the AFC North. Spoiler alert: this is going to take up a lot of our time on the podcast today. First off, all four teams are above 500, which I don't think anybody was ready for at the beginning of this year. I don't know that we saw the Steelers or the Browns having winning records at this point. Even the people that did expect the Browns, I don't think expected 6-3 and half a game behind the division lead, right? So let's start with the Steelers because I find them super fascinating. Okay, after this week, after they have completed this week, they are now 6-3. And I want you to keep that in mind as I read these stats to you. They are a bottom 5 offense, a bottom 5 defense, bottom 5 in passing offense, bottom 5 in passing defense. How the fuck is this team winning football games?
Listen, the stats are there. We've known it. They're not a good team, but they're finding ways to be gritty, to win these ugly games. Like every week, it's almost like it's actually an ugly game every single week. But, they've won 6 of those ugly games, and I don't know how, but, props to them. We haven't seen them really click offensively all the time, but I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I guess what's super fascinating to me, like the most notable thing watching the Steelers is that their play calling on offense is absolutely atrocious. There were quite a few weeks there in a row. I don't know if it's still accurate, but they were actually 32nd in both passing and rushing offense. Like, it was just actively bad, right? You have to figure that in those moments, like, the defense takes over, and outside of this week's game against the Packers, where they had that late interception on Jordan Love, like, I don't even feel like they're winning the turnover game where it's just, you can't beat us if you never get the ball. We can suck as bad as we want, but we score once and we're better than you, right? Like, I think it's super interesting that, like, you can be so non-competitive on paper and still manage to win games. And I guess my big question for them going forward is, if this extends and they make the playoffs, right? If they get to a wild card spot, can they beat a good team with these shitty stats? Like, if we watched them beat the Ravens a couple of weeks ago, like, we know that they can win that ugly game against Baltimore, right? But if you catch, like, let's say the Jaguars in the wild card round of the playoffs, can you responsibly say that the Steelers have a chance?
No, I think 100% no. Like, I don't care. The only reason I'll say, again, they won that game against Baltimore, but, like, again, that was an ugly game from Baltimore as well. Like, they needed to not play perfect in order for, the Steelers to take advantage. But it's not like I think they could be in every game, like, offensively. Like, I don't believe that at all. I think it's single-handedly, it's just, like, the teams that they've been playing, these ugly wins, like, they all are, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, maybe, like, lowered down to that tier of ugliness, and just they can't find anything working. But, like, I think come playoff time, 100% no. They need offensive firepower.
It's so hard for me to count them out, though, only because, like, even with as bad as they are, they still win, right? Like, we talked last week as we did our insane takes, right? That, like, if the Bengals or the Ravens are kind of the two teams that we said were the team to beat in the AFC, right? Like, well, we already watched the Steelers beat the Ravens. Sure, the Ravens had an ugly game, like you said, but, like, it's doable. Why is that not something that we could see a second time? If the Bengals lost a really ugly one this week where Joe Burrow was literally trying to give the ball away in the fourth quarter, right? Like, why is that not something that we could see against the Steelers in a late season scenario? Like, it's just fascinating to me that I don't feel confident being like, yeah, they're bad, so this 6-3 is going to turn around. Like, we're more than halfway through the year. It's so hard to just write them off.
Well, you're a Kenny Pickett fan, so I mean, No bias there, right? No bias there at all, you know?
Oh, this isn't even Kenny Pickett. I think he looks like shit. Do not get me wrong. But it's just kind of weird to me that, like, why can't one of the ugly games line up in the playoffs? You'd think that, like, even if they were stealing a couple wins against good teams, that, like, okay, well, 3-3 is a whole lot more understandable than 6-3. Like, that's too many ugly games in a row. Even if their defensive stats suck, they have to be doing something to make the other teams look ugly. It can't happen this consistently and mean nothing.
Well, right now it means nothing to me. So
fair enough. I did mention the Bengals, so I think we should get to their game next because, like I said, we're sitting in the AFC North here for a while. Man, what the hell is Joe Burrow doing? I said last week, I took an insane take that said the Bengals are a second-half team. They turn it on, they get better through the year, and it instantly made me eat my words against the Houston Texans. Joe Burrow, 3 turnovers in the fourth quarter alone. What the hell?
Yeah, I mean, again, man, like it was, we talked a little bit before how we were talking about was a pretty exciting game, but you made a pretty good point. Like, yeah, it seemed like Joe Burrow was just trying to give the ball back to the Texans. Like, yeah, all right, bring it closer, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think that, I don't know. I don't know what to say about Joe Burrow. I don't like him. That's what I say.
I did see a couple of people making takes online that, like, not having T. Higgins is a huge deal for the Bengals and that their offense looks so much better when he's on the field. On paper, that makes sense, right? Because if you're taking some of the attention off of Jamar Chase, right, that, like, Burrow's field kind of opens up and he gets more ability, right? I also recognize that, like, when he spent a couple weeks injured, he did not look like himself, but from all reports, he's back to full health, right? Not having T. Higgins there doesn't mean that Burrow didn't force those 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter, right? Like, I don't know how T. Higgins being there makes Joe Burrow's decision making any better. It just strikes me that they're in a very weird place. It felt really badly to me like they were trying actively to lose that game, and somehow they're still only 2.5 games out of the division.
I mean, even with, like, T. Higgins being out, like, what? I know last season he had a pretty good season, but, like, what has he done this season? Like, I feel like we haven't seen him be, like, a staple of that offense that we've been seeing, like, for the past few years. So, like, him being out, like, I feel like it didn't really change anything for them. I mean, maybe, yes, his field, could open up a little bit, but we haven't seen, Higgins have a good year beyond any measure right now. I mean, easy for me to say, I'm fucking sitting here in a chair. But, like, again, I haven't seen a lot from T. Higgins to make me be like, oh, that was 100% the reason why they lost. Like, I think it was just Burrow trying to make plays and just gamble a little too hard.
Well, and it's not like the Bengals struggled all day on offense, right? Like, this game wasn't slop up until the fourth quarter. The Bengals still scored 27. It's not like T. Higgins there means that 27 turns into 67 really fast, right? Like, I get the concept, but, like, that didn't feel like the reason that they lost that game. And it just, not to take any credit away from Houston or CJ Stroud and how well they played, don't get me wrong, but that felt a whole lot more like the Bengals losing than the Texans winning.
Yeah, fair.
While we're on the topic, we did kind of talk a little bit before the podcast started about CJ Stroud. And I just want to make sure that this podcast is very clear where we stand on CJ Stroud, because I saw a whole lot of takes on the internet this week about CJ Stroud for MVP, and I think we need to calm down just a little.
Agreed. I mean, I know we talked. He's got that dog in him, but MVP not there yet.
Yeah. Our basic take is he's that dude. Call him Rookie of the Year now. No judgment at all, but, like, the MVP does not lose to the Atlanta Falcons 15-13. That doesn't happen. Okay, I just want to throw that out there. All right. Staying again in the NFC, or the AFC North rather. Browns and Ravens played this weekend. I think this by season's end could turn into a pretty important game. I thought both teams played pretty well. This is one of the better games this weekend. I think the surprising part for me was the Browns. Their offense looked better than we've seen it in weeks, but their defense looked worse. Doesn't matter. They still win the football game. No discredit to the Ravens. I still think they're a very good AFC team, but they didn't feel like they had enough to get it done against Cleveland, which is so weird to say out loud.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, any other week, come this coming week, I believe Ravens are gonna, win, probably bounce back. I think it's just a little bit different. I mean, again, it's a divisional game. It does matter. Like, I think, maybe the Browns were more, into it because it was a divisional. And I know that obviously brings out better gameplay. Like, we've seen it before. So, that's kind of where I'm at with that game. Like, I agree. I think they both played pretty well. Again, Ravens did choke away that lead, but I still think, I'm not worried about them losing 2 points to the Browns right now.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, I think we talked last week that I think the Ravens and the Bengals have to be the two, like, front runners for the AFC, given the history and where teams have played this season, right? And I guess this loss doesn't worry me that badly. Like, I still am pretty confident that the Ravens are a good team and can win on any given week. So, but I do think that, like, if this division stays as close as it is, that, like, if the end of the year the division is decided by one game or by a tiebreaker, I mean, I think the Browns just bought themselves a whole lot of real estate by winning this game.
Agreed.
All right. I'm kind of going to turn the reins over to you because there's a couple games that you wanted to talk about that I did not watch much of, to be honest. Let's start with Dallas and the Giants because that game got really ugly really fast and I turned it off. Thanks, Dak Prescott and CD Lamb, for winning me my fantasy week as two players, but I did not need to watch this game to know that was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, coming in, I think we all knew what was going to happen. I mean, we saw it week one. And we saw it again, So the one thing I wanted to say is obviously, we've seen the Cowboys beat up on that smaller teams and, they've played decently against the better teams, but I just want to pump the brakes on any Cowboys hype train here, Again, it's what you're supposed to do against the bad teams. You're supposed to beat up on them, But the big question is, can you beat the bigger teams? And right now, they haven't. So I just want to spoil that for anyone who's a Cowboys fan, Yeah, until you prove you can beat a winning team and a decent team, you're still dog shit. Yeah, it's pretty much all I had to say about the Cowboys. On to the Lions and Chargers, though. Ted, I feel bad for you, man. I really do. Yeah,
other obligations got a little bit in the way of this, and then Red Zone shit on me because it just did not show up at all. But yeah, it's okay. Game of the week. I only missed it. It's fine.
Yeah, this was incredible. First freaking drive, in the first quarter, we see Justin Herbert throw a pick, and I was not having fun. But then, we turned it around. Lions played amazingly. Both Gibbs and Montgomery had themselves games. The second half, it was really just every drive was a touchdown, and it just got to the point where Chargers just didn't have time to make another drive. Like, I honestly think, this was another, Bills Chiefs. Like, I would have loved to see this again, longer, more in tune. It was pretty good. Yeah, dude, Lions are now second seed.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. Coming into this season, we thought there would be a wild card team, and here they are, second seed. And they're looking pretty nice. I'm not going to lie.
I will say the one thing, like, again, not watching this game live, watching the, expedited recap that they give you, right? Like, in the 15-minute video that I watched that covered this game, right? Like, the one thing that really stood out to me was the Lions play calling. And I think that's a really big deal. Like, we knew going into this year that they had offensive talent, right? I mean, even we mentioned at the trade deadline last year that picking up Hawkinson made a good team so much better. They did it again by bringing in Peoples-Jones this year to, like, make that offense even better, right? Like, there's no question about offensive talent. But every time I have ever watched Dan Campbell coach anywhere, the play calling just sucks, and he just wants to beat you up. He wants to be more aggressive than you, right? But, like, they were calling smart plays at the right time with the right personnel, like, every single snap. I was super impressed with how well the Lions were able to scheme this game up.
Yeah, agreed. And, obviously we know the Chargers defense isn't, like a top unit, but their offense kept them in it. And, again, I truly believe that was an amazing game. I would have loved to see the overtime. That would have been. It was just whoever ran out of time That was it. And unfortunately, it was the Chargers. But no, I'm very happy about the Lions. This is where I start to, I don't know. I think the Lions could definitely beat the Cowboys. And I'm not ready to say that they could beat the Eagles, okay? But we're getting there.
That was my next question. Is like when we talked a couple of weeks ago, like where teams were leading in the division, right? Like I think we had some questions about the Lions. Like, do we see them beating the top teams? At the time, I think we talked mostly Eagles and Niners. We kind of threw the Cowboys a little bit into the conversation, right? But like, I mean, I think the Lions are more consistent than Dallas. I think Dallas has a higher ceiling, but they don't always play to their ceiling. So like, I don't know if the Lions, I don't know if I would take the Lions in a playoff scenario, right? The way we've watched the 49ers play, I might be on the Lions, to be honest. And I it's very hard for me to give an honest opinion because I am personally invested in the Eagles, right? Like, I know that I'm down on the Eagles this year compared to last year, even if they are NFL's best, quote unquote, right? That like I don't even know that I would be confident in the Eagles in Detroit, to be honest. Like I am super impressed with the Lions and everything they're doing this year. They're a really good football team, way better than expected.
Agreed. And I know you just touched on them a little bit. Niners, kind of a bounce back win. You know, I remember last week we both picked the Jags to win. And they got smoked. Yeah. And Niners looked good again. I mean, again, but that goes down to a question on how good are you without Deebo Samuel? Like, we haven't seen, we watched them lose 3 straight without Deebo. You know, they have their bye week. Deebo comes back, and now they're just cooking against a better team. Again, the Jags aren't a stout defense, but, you know, they still, you know, pretty decent. So,
and I was super, like, the 34-3 would indicate that this was an absolute blowout, monstrous win, right? Like watching each individual drive, if you took everything isolated and didn't compare it to the rest of the game, I don't think the 49ers were that much better than the Jags. Well, okay, let me back up half a second. 49ers offense was not that much better than the Jags defense. They scored a lot, but it wasn't like it was a complete blowout, right? It wasn't like they were trampling all over them. Even when they were trying to get McCaffrey his touchdown to keep his streak going, RIP streak, they got stopped on 4th and goal, right? Like it wasn't like the Jags weren't doing well on defense that just kind of it turned into scoring. The real surprise to me was that the Jags offense did fuck all, which tells me that the Niners defense did really well. And I'm kind of wondering where that's been for their 3 straight losses, that defense can perform this well against what we consider to be a better team, that like we just got it this week where we haven't for 3 other weeks in a row. Deebo doesn't help the Niners defense. Like it's all just kind of confusing to put all those pieces together.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously probably with the bye, they're extra rested, but I mean, Jags had an extra week too. And they didn't do anything. It hurt, man, because I was really banking on Travis Etienne. But I still won, but barely. But it was scary, you know?
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that brings us, if we've got any fantasy news, I know I don't have much. I stopped my fantasy week because Cowboys offense. I
mean, I think Kyler Murray, he had a pretty decent comeback this week. You know, if you're looking for a super flex, maybe pick him up. He should be still available. It's only, Tuesday. And
he did miss 10 weeks. Yeah. All right. I think that brings us to gambling. I felt super good about this week as I was going through individual games, and then I looked at the scores, and I was like, I didn't do that great. Noah went 7-7, which brings him to 66, 53-2. He still got me by 7 games, but this week I beat him by 1 singular game and went 8-6. It brings me 59, 60-2. We're inching back towards that 500 mark. All right. This week, there's so many double-digit spreads. I fucking hate it here. Let's start with Thursday night. Better than all of the other primetime games last week. Thursday starts with Cincy and Baltimore. Ravens are 3.5 favorites at home.
Yeah, I'm sticking to my gut. I'm going Ravens on this one. And I don't feel comfortable with that one because I feel like Bengals are going to have a bounce-back week. But I'm hoping the Ravens defense does something.
Yeah, I'm with you on Baltimore. I don't think that their defense looks that pedestrian a second time. Their offense didn't fail to perform at all. Cincy, again, just recently, like, Burrow was turning the ball over. Like, as simple as that. So I think I think I'll stick with Baltimore. I have the Chargers and the Packers. Chargers are 3-point favorites on the road.
Pretty easy for me, Chargers. Yeah.
Yeah, I think only 3 points there is pretty disrespectful. I'm with you. Tennessee, Jacksonville. Jags are 6.5 favorites at home. And this point in the season, man, I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing with Tennessee ever. Like, they've just kind of made themselves irrelevant, but I feel like I lose to them every single week on the spread. I think Jacksonville's the better team, so I'm going to take Jacksonville, but I'm going to lose because it's Tennessee.
I believe Jags bounce back. We'll pick them. I reaffirm your no Titans here, you know?
All right. First big spread of the week, I got the Raiders of the Dolphins. Dolphins are 11.5 favorites at home. Again, it's only struggle because it's a big spread. The Raiders look a whole lot better without Josh McDaniels, but I don't know that it's better enough to keep up with Miami. I'll take them by 11.5. Ugh.
I'll fade you. I'll go Raiders on this one just because I think they will keep it. It'll be a competitive game.
All right. Following up with another big spread, Dallas at Carolina. Cowboys are 10.5 favorites on the road. For me, this one feels like the game that Dallas is just supposed to lose. Like, after they go and beat the hell out of the Giants, like, this is the week that they show us the inconsistency and Carolina covers. But Dallas is just so much better than Carolina that I feel like I have to take Dallas here.
Yeah, no, agreed. As much as I think the Panthers could put up like 7 points, they're not putting up 49. So, Cowboys.
All right, I got Arizona and Houston. The Texans are 4.5 favorites at home.
Four and a half. I don't know. I'll go Texans. No, I'll go Cardinals on this one. I think we're looking at a different Cardinals team. Kyler Murray is going to be back a little bit more.
Man, Kyler Murray is just the variable to me, right? That, like, he's good. He's now got a week under his belt where he feels like he's back. Like, he could play pretty solid. CJ Stroud has looked so good the past 2 weeks, man. It is hard to bet against him. I think I'm taking Houston just because they're at home. Like, I think if it was 4.5 favorites on the road, I'd probably flip, but I'll take Houston at home. I've got Pittsburgh and Cleveland. The Browns are only 4-point favorites at home.
Listen, I said it. It's going to be an ugly game for both of them. But I truly believe somehow the goddamn Steelers are going to win this because it's going to be an ugly game.
I decided before you started talking that I was going to fade you one way or another, so I guess that leaves me with Cleveland. If I bet Pittsburgh to win a sloppy game, they'll lose it. If I bet Cleveland because they're the favorites and they're way better, now the Steelers are going to win. So enjoy your win on this one, though. I've got Giants at Washington. The Commanders are 9.5 favorites at home. Dude, this one is super easy for me because I do not trust the Commanders to beat anybody by 10 points. I'm taking the Giants. As bad as they are, I'm taking the Giants.
Yeah, I think Giants as well, just because, again, they still put up 17 points against a pretty decent defense. So,
all right, Chicago, Detroit. Lions are 10-point favorites at home. I don't know if in my lifetime I have seen a double-digit spread in favor of the Lions, dude. This is monumental. Chicago's playing pretty bad. Like, they didn't start that hot, and I feel like they're only getting worse. Detroit's only getting better. And now they've got even another week of really good football that they beat the Chargers with to put it together even more and, continue calling good plays. I'm going to take Detroit.
I would love to join you, but for some parity, I'll go Bears. I think, Justin Fields might be back this week, so maybe they'll have an offensive explosion. Who knows? But I'll go Bears on this one.
All right. And yet another big spread. I got Tampa Bay, San Francisco. Niners are 10.5 favorites at home. As weird as this sounds, I think I'm taking Tampa. I wholeheartedly believe that San Francisco is at least 11 points better than Tampa, but Tampa finds a way to keep themselves in football games they're playing pretty consistently, and one win is not enough for me to decide that San Francisco is as back as they were. I think Tampa Bay can cover even if San Fran wins this game.
See, that was my exact answer, but now I feel if I say that, I just like we need some parity, man. Like, fuck, why do you gotta screw me? No, I'll take the Niners, but I firmly believe what Ted just said. So
I think we got to start making picks off stream beforehand, and then we just have to read them out rather than making them live because it might help.
Maybe I like that idea.
All right, I got Jets, Bills. Bills are 6.5 favorites.
Yep, bounce back week for sure. I mean, I don't know what the fuck is going to happen to me if we don't. So
it is hard for me to say that a team who just fired their offensive coordinator before he shows up to work on Tuesday can win by 7 points. But they're lucky enough to get the Jets this week, so I'm also taking Buffalo.
There we go. Nice.
I got Seattle and the Rams. Seattle's a 1-point favorite on the road.
All right, I know who I'm taking,
All right, I'm taking Seattle. I don't think 1 point is enough. The Rams just aren't consistent for me. I'll stick to Seahawks.
Yeah, no, I'm going Rams because I think Matthew Stafford will be back. I think we're going to see an offense that actually does decently. So
okay. Sunday night, I have Minnesota at Denver. Denver is a 2.5 favorite.
Dude, fuck no. Vikings.
Yep.
No, there should be no game where the Broncos are favorites. I don't care who they just beat.
And I will never bet against Josh Dobbs. Salute that man. All right. And then Monday night, we'll actually get a great primetime game. Philadelphia, Kansas City. Chiefs are 3-point favorites at home.
Wow. Well, they blessed us after this past week.
How about
Dude, why? I think you'll be happy. But why do I have a feeling I'm going Eagles?
All right. I alternatively am taking Kansas City. It's been a while since the Eagles have played against a good defense that I don't know they're going to walk into this week ready. And that Andy Reid against any team right after a bye week, send it. Kansas City, signed, sealed, delivered. I will be okay with that Eagles loss. I am fully ready for this, but no, KC by 20. Andy Reid, man. What a man. Anyway, lines are provided by FanDuel as of Tuesday. They are subject to change by game time. Please gamble responsibly. Remember, we're not providing gambling advice, solely providing our picks. If you or a loved one has a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, before we wrap it up, got anything else?
No, that's it for me.
All right, man. Well, I'm looking forward to games this weekend. Hope you guys are too. We'll see you next week. Adios.